Let's rank MCU's Phase 4 shows. I'm gonna give you my quick thoughts all while ranking them from worst to best. Now remember, this is my opinion, so your list is probably gonna be a lot different. I'm also not gonna include Groot, Werewolf by Night, or the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, because those are either super tiny shorts or just specials, not really shows. That being said, Groot was super cute, Werewolf by Night was really good and entertaining, and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special was fantastic and I really enjoyed it. So let's get into the list. Number 8 and coming in dead last, no surprise to anybody, is What If. This series tried to do something interesting, but each story was either bad or just okay. I feel like they didn't try hard enough to be unique and they just played it too safe. The only two episodes I liked was episode 4 and episode 7. I also don't like how they randomly tied everything together at the very end. Introducing the whole Vision Ultron fusion thing with the gauntlet, I just didn't really like it. It could have been a lot better, and my rating is a 5.5 out of 10. Number 7, and sadly the show I had high hopes for because I'm a fan of her comics, but it fell flat for me, is She-Hulk. Tatiana does an amazing job as She-Hulk. I loved Pug, but the only good episodes were the last 3-ish, and not by much either. The best episode was the Daredevil episode, and not just because he was in it, but it was the only one that really felt the most like a comic book show. The wedding episode was trash. I hated the character Titania, and they just completely ruined her from how she is in the comics. The ending also ruins a lot in the MCU, which I'll get into in another video. Also, what they did with a lot of characters and story directions, I just really didn't like. My rating is a 6 out of 10 for this one. Number 6 is Ms. Marvel. Now, I love the portrayal of Kamala Khan. She was amazing and a lot like her comic book counterpart. I also really like the family dynamic in the show. I think it was probably the best part of it. I hated how the show lost its artistic flair that they had in the beginning of the show. The villains were generic and boring, like I don't care about damage control or the clandestines. They're just a bunch of average looking people with some fancy looking weapons. Her suit was really cool looking at the very end though. 6.5 out of 10 for me. Number 5 is Moon Knight, and it was one of my most anticipated shows coming out, and it really just fell flat for me. Oscar Isaac does a fine job in this, but I really hate how they changed all of his personas from the comics to live action. Like there's literally no reason to change how they were at all. I also didn't like how they toned down the action with those random blackout moments. I didn't like how Mark wasn't the badass one like he should have been. I hated how awkward and goofy they made Steven, and he completely ruined the Mr. Knight character, who is super cool in the comics. The bad guy was boring, and I really wish it was Bushmaster instead. Layla was a nice addition, and her suit at the end looked really cool. Some fun action scenes, but the show really didn't hook me. 6.5 out of 10. Number 4 is WandaVision, and this one's a tricky one. Knowing how the show ends up, the beginning makes a lot more sense. But watching it week by week, the whole family sitcom thing wasn't really vibing with me, with the sense of like, ooh, something might be wrong here. Don't get me wrong, I was impressed by how they were able to pull off all the classic looks for all the sitcoms throughout the years. But the show didn't really pick up and get interesting for me until about episode 5. Then the show really took off and I started to really enjoy it. I give this a 7.5 out of 10. Number 3 is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This was a super fun action adventure with some great leads. From the get-go, the show had me wanting more, and I really liked the relationship between Bucky and Falcon. We do get 2 villains in this, and I think Carly was the weaker one out of the bunch, but US Agent was really cool in this. I also like how the show brought back some familiar characters from the past. It all felt very connected. 7.5 out of 10. Number 2 is Loki. It was honestly just such a blast. Tom Hiddleston is just meant to play Loki, and what is not to love about his performance? The addition to Owen Wilson as Mobius was great, and this is the first time we ever got to hear about the Sacred Timeline. We also get the badass female version of Loki in Sylvie. It had good action, good dialogue, and some good set pieces. It was just really an interesting ride, and also the first time we ever get to see Kang. 8.5 out of 10. And number 1 is my favorite, Hawkeye. This was hands down my favorite show, and I've watched it twice already. We get one of my favorites in Hawkeye, and we get to see more of his personal and family life, and they also pull heavily from the Matt Fraction run, which is great. We also get introduced to Kate Bishop, who is a new favorite of mine, and I can't wait to see more of her. Echo as the villain wasn't the best in this, but the action scenes really did kick ass. We also get to see Yelena again, and who doesn't love her? The show also gave us the return of Kingpin, and it was so great to see him again. I love how they pulled the show off, and it was just an enjoyable time. 8.5 out of 10. So what do you guys think of my list? Let me know down in the comments, and also comment your list down below. If you guys want to see more, hit that follow button, and as always, thanks for watching.